Combined neck and armhole facing, and you're going to start off by unpinning all of your pattern pieces and joining the facing pieces to each other at the shoulder seam and the bodice pieces together at the shoulder seam. So you'll be sewing those on the sewing machine 1.5 centimetres from the edge using a straight tangles. Pin across the facing. So you've got what looks like a miniature top that will sit inside the top later on. You can then stitch over your pins to join those shoulder seams. If you're sewing on a bernina, then you need to make sure that your stitch type is on 0, so the bottom position here, which can be pushed across and drop to the bottom. Your width is on 0 and your stitch length is on 2.5. 2.5 line is the middle line on these, sorry, the 1.5 line is the middle line on these. So place the edge of your calico on that line, drop your presser foot, and then sew 3 stitches forwards. Using the stitch length indicator to reverse, go back for 3, and then carry on to the end of the sample, and reverse for a further 3. Raise the presser foot up, raise the take-up lever up and the presser foot up, and then take it out and repeat that at the bottom, the other end. Two pieces, you need to overlock the bottom edge of your facing. So on the back you'll be overlocking 2 separate pieces, like so, and on the front you'll be overlocking along this bottom edge here. It is a bit of a funny shape, so go nice and slowly to control it. You shouldn't need to cut too much off if you've been accurate with your cutting. Remember, no pins in the overlocker and you don't need to reverse. If you've got like a pointed section here, you can curve that off as you overlock, so don't need any points in this. When you finish, carry on overlocking so you have a long tail of thread at the end. That's the bottom edge of the front, and then on the back. Same process, just 2 shorter distances. Once you've finished overlocking, just take some embroidery scissors and trim off all of the long edges. Really important when you're doing a facing that you make sure all of your seams are pressed open, because there's going to be multiple layers of fabric sewn together, so it'll be really bulky. So just open out your seam allowance and press it flat. You do not need to overlock these seam allowances because this is a facing. It's going to be sort of self-contained, so there won't be any raw edges available, like visible. The next thing you need to do is to join the shoulder seams on your actual top in the same way that you did before. So you're going to measure those together and put a couple of pins in and then stitch them on the sewing machine at 1.5. You don't need to overlock the bottom edge of the top, but you will need to press the shoulder seams open on your top. Edge then is to join the facing to the top. So you're going to have the shoulder seams on the top facing upwards with the seam allowance facing down. You're then going to place your facing on top with the right sides together, so you'll be able to see your seam allowance. Make sure the seams match perfectly, so the first pin you'll put in should be across those seams like so, and then go around to the other side and pin that in position too. When you pin, you're going to pin all the way around the neck seam here, but you're also going to pin around the armhole seams at the same time. So you're going to have 2 lots of stitching. In fact, it'll be 3 lots of stitching, 1 around this armhole, 1 around this armhole, and 1 all the way around the neck. Reverse at the beginning and follow the shape of the facing, so try and keep the 1.5 even and shaped. Stitch over the top of the seam, but make sure that the seam allowance is open on both layers, so underneath and on top. at this end. And as you press the foot, start a new line of stitching that goes all the way around the neck. Again, you're working at 1.5 and you're going over the seams with the seam allowance left over. Reverse at each end. Repeat that on the final armhole. You then clip the curve. What? So all the way around both bits of stitching, you're going to take your embroidery scissors and cut down to the stitching but not through it every centimetre. This is important to allow it to turn through evenly. Probably need a sharper pair of scissors than I have here. When you've fully clipped your sample, then you need to turn it through. So you're going to pull the whole thing through one of the armholes. It's a bit fiddly, especially on a sample of this size. On your real tops it will be easier because you have a bigger gap. Once it's all pulled through, then you need to pull the second armhole through, but it will be easier because it's less fabric to get through. And then you need to go back to the iron. Once it's all pulled through, you need to iron your seam to make it sharp. Be very careful that you roll the seam out so that the edge of the stitching is on the outside. You don't want it to be folded like this because you'll lose actual parts of the top. So you're going to press the seams open, make it nice and crisp, rolling as you go. Repeat that on the neck. And on the second armhole. The next thing you need to do is to join the side seams of your top. You're going to open the facing out, placing your seam allowance down this time, not open, and pin along the side seam and the edge of the facing, and you join that all as one long side seam and then fold it over. But it's really important that seam allowance is facing downwards this time, otherwise you'll have like a really uncomfortable bulk underneath the arm. Repeat that on the other side, making sure seam allowance is facing downwards, and then sew through the facing and the side seam at the same time.
Do you have to edit them together?
I'll do it on silent. Right, next then is just to sew up that long line of the armhole and the facing at the same time. So 3 forward, 3 back. Keeping that seam allowance pointing downwards as you go over the top. It's one continual line, so you don't need to go forwards and backwards over the seam allowance. and then 3/4 and 3 back at the end of the facing. Trim off any loose edges and then just fold your facing back over so your facing has created a neatened edge all the way around your top and around the armhole at the same time. So that's the easiest way to keep both areas neatened.